Father, again, I thank you, we thank you for bringing us here. We ask now to hear your voice, to hear your message. Help us to tune out the distractions of the world. Help me to be a microphone for your wisdom, for your message. Lord, we wait to hear from you and ask the simple question: what should you have your children do? Christ, let me pray. Amen. From 1948 to 1992, South Africa was considered apartheid, a term coined by the local population. Apartheid can only be described as separate but equal, taken to its most extreme and heinous degree. During this time, the white immigrant minority population had superior rights over the native black population, or any other race for that matter. Blacks were not allowed to vote, interracial marriage became a crime deserving capital punishment, and the government tried to establish dedicated states where only members of a certain race could live. You can imagine who got the better locations. And I could stand here all day going through the long list of what that government did. But as you can imagine, resistance started to rise. People of all creeds and color rose up to stand against this injustice. Many groups were formed, each with their own idea of how to solve the problem of apartheid. Some more violent than others. Regardless, the government responded aggressively, and any dissenter was brutally punished or sentenced to death. At times, the struggle felt more like a civil war, where all sides were responsible for horrible things. I tell you all this as a backdrop to a story. Shortly after the end of apartheid, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission was formed. Its purpose, to help this country, to help this people move past the atrocities that had occurred. Victims and perpetrators were summoned, trials were held, committees were formed to help with rehabilitation. Amnesty was even considered. Part of this process was just to get knowledge out. Not only so that the entire country would know, but the whole world would know what had happened in the past and what they were doing to move forward. One of these hearings, a woman and a man were presented, and this is their story. The woman, a wife and mother. The man, higher up in the apartheid government. Leader of one of these districts, states. The woman's son, being of college age, and college age students like to do this, they like to be involved in politicalness, protests, demonstrations. The woman's son wanted to be part of the peaceful demonstration because he believed that this could be done with peace, not with war. And so he got involved with one of the local groups. Got involved with protests, demonstrations. The man watched as the son spoke, as he demonstrated. Just watched in silence. Let the young man, let the son say what he needed to say. Let the son go home. Let the son sit down for dinner. And in that moment, the man ordered soldiers into the house to drag the son away, to be beaten, for lack of better words, to be ripped to shreds. His dead body was then taken back to the house, deposited on the front doorstep as a message for the community. The woman's husband acted like what any father would do. He wanted justice. So he went out. He protested. He demonstrated. The man watched the father. Let the Father say what he needed to say. Let the Father demonstrate what he needed to demonstrate. Let the Father go home. Let the Father sit down for dinner. And then he ordered soldiers into the house to drag the Father away, to beat him, to rip him to shreds, and deposit his body back on the front doorstep as a reminder of the message left with the Son. At the end of the story, the committee, one part of the commission, looked at the woman. What would you have us do? What would you want the punishment to be? The woman took a moment. She prayed. She thought. She prayed some more. Then she looked in that man's eyes and said, I want him for the rest of our lives to come to my house once a week for dinner. I want him to have what little love I have left in my heart. I want him to have what little love I have left in my heart. Why? Why would she do that? The man was responsible for the torture, humiliation, and death of both her son and her husband. Why? Why would the family of those killed in Charleston, why would they look at the face of their killer and say, I forgive you? Why would a family of someone killed in the Boston bombing advocate that Dzhokhar Tsarnaev not be put to death for his horrible crime? Why did they look on defeat, hanging their heads down low when the judge issued the final sentence of death? Why did Charleston not erupt into a race war, but instead came together despite race to pray, to march, and support one another? Do they not understand how justice is supposed to work? Or do they understand it far more than we do? But why or how? How could you do that? Simple answer is love. A love that is not of this earth. A love that requires an almost impossible amount of strength. A love that seeks redemption for all. A love that only comes from God. But before I talk about love, I have to talk about hate. Hate is what marched through those doors in Charleston. Hate is what pulled the trigger. Hate is what consumed that young man. Hate is all around us. Hate has been here a long time. A lot longer than Dylann Roof has. A lot longer than any of us. In fact, it's as old as creation. But what is hate? We throw that word around a lot, and sometimes I wonder if I can even fully comprehend what is hate. Is it an entity? A being? Satan? Is it a state of mind? A disease? Is it a sin? No. Hate is not a sin. And yes, you did hear me correctly. Hate is not a sin. Hate is sin itself. Whether we realize it or not, we have split sin into two entities of understanding. There are the sins, the little s, the things that we tell in Good News Club as anything we say, we do, we think that this pleases God. But then there's the capital S sin. That which causes us to engage in these individual acts of sins. It's what drives us. It's the darkness in our own heart. It's the very thing that Jesus came to save us from. The thing that plagues humanity like a disease. constantly trying to pull us away from God, embodying everything that God is not. Sin is the opposite of God. 1 John 4:7-8 states, "Beloved, let us love one another, for love is of God, and everyone who loves is born of God and knows God. He who does not love does not know God, for God is love." God is love. If sin is everything that is not God, if hate is everything that is not love, and God is love, then sin must be hate. In Matthew 22, Jesus said that all the law can be broken down to loving God with all of our beings and loving others as ourselves. He would later add, "Love others as I have loved you." But if we can take the entirety of the law, the entirety of the Ten Commandments, the entirety of the first 5 books of the Bible, and sum it up as loving God and loving others, to disobey must be hate. Where am I going with all of this? Right now, as most times, I might seem all over the page. But like most times, there is a point. There is a destination. In the recent months, the idea of Rebecca and I having children has become more and more real. And no, this is not an announcement. That's not enough, because this is getting a little bit too heavy. This is actually a confession. As this idea has become more real, I've become face to face with a single question. Of this world that I'm bringing life into, am I proud of it or am I ashamed? God designed this world as an ecosystem. Every part, every being, every person plays a part. That means that everyone impacts the whole of creation in some way, no matter how big or small you are. Your very existence changes the ecosystem. I'm responsible for any additional hate or love that is added to the world. Every decision that we make changes the ecosystem. It changes the world. I ask you, especially parents, are you proud of this world, or are you ashamed? Because someday you won't be here, and our kids will be. And what they have left of this world is partly what we left forward. I'm ashamed of this world. I'm ashamed of how prevalent hate has become in them. In the past 8 years, we have seen violence in Virginia Tech, Sandy Hook, Boston, London, Paris, riots in Ferguson, and in Baltimore. And just under a week and a half, we have Charleston. What makes this even sadder is that this is just naming a few things. Just a few headlines that we catch. I'm ashamed that each of these events has left those outside of the community spending too much time fighting and arguing. We spend our time pointing fingers, blaming others, when we should be loving. At this point, I have seen more in the media about the Confederate flag than I have seen in the media about what has happened in Charleston and what is happening today in Charleston. I'm ashamed that while we spread angry and vile messages about Dylan Rue, that while we make jokes degrading him and complain that a cop bought him a cheeseburger, that while we express with our tongues or keep quiet in our hearts the words, "execute him," that while we do all of this, the family of the victims can look him in the face and say, "I forgive you, I am praying for you, may God have mercy on you." I'm ashamed that while the families are responding to hate with love, we are giving into the hate. And I am including that debate on the Confederate flag. Believe me, I've watched people on both sides of this debate, whether it was in person, on the media, or on social media, treat each other like scum. I'm ashamed that while I recognize and respect the Second Amendment and its purpose, that there is something sad about the fact that we have to discuss, that we have to entertain the idea of arming our teachers or coordinating with church members of who's bringing a gun that Sunday. Now hear me, I'm not criticizing gun holders, the right to hold guns. I have firearms. But of all places where we should be able to say, we don't need guns there, school and church should be the top. I should be able to send my kids to school and know they are safe, that they can learn and grow freely, and not worry if someone's going to bring a gun to school, or if her science teacher is going to have to take somebody out. Look around you. This is a place of worship. This is a place we come to hear and experience God. This is a place that's supposed to be safe. This is a place where we can be free of this world, where love flourishes. We should not have to worry about someone walking in through those doors. I'm ashamed that in the aftermath of Charleston, I've heard more people say, if only someone was carrying that knife, if only someone else had a gun. I hear more of that than I hear, if only someone could have talked him out of it. If only someone had come around earlier in this man's life, and where hate was being poured into him, they poured in love. I'm ashamed that while we like to call ourselves a Christian nation, we don't act very Christian. We call ourselves a Christian nation, and yet our murder rate, the amount of rapes that occur, our abortion rate, our divorce rate, the number of homeless, the number of people who cannot survive on their income alone, the number of veterans that come home unwelcomed, left, cast aside, the low adoption rate, the fact that our family has become so broken. We call ourselves Christians. Those things call us hypocrites. I'm ashamed that many Christians, leaders or not, famous or not, cry out that they love the sinner but not the sin, that they love gay people. But yet very few of them can say that they have even reached out to someone who's homosexual. That very few of them can say that they have a friend who's gay. I'm ashamed that we say we love gay people, yet we use terms like war or agenda to blame the problems of the family solely on them. The problems that the family has been facing have long existed before the gay rights movement. I'm ashamed that we say we love them, yet we make homophobic jokes. And no, it doesn't make it better that we make fun of other sins or other sinners. I'm ashamed that we use the term the gospel is offensive as an excuse to be hateful and not show love. I'm ashamed that while the church seeks in all different ways to be relevant, we have forgotten love. Most importantly, I'm ashamed of myself. When I look back over these past 8 years. I know I'm guilty for all of this. I'm ashamed that while I was in college, and I lived in the darkest dorm on campus, the one dorm that everyone was praying that Jesus would show up, that very dorm where I was living when I found my faith again, that the people in that dorm knew me more for my political beliefs than for my faith or my love. I'm ashamed that on that Wednesday night, when the news first reported the shooting in Charleston, and my wife expressed shocking concern, I felt nothing. I turned the TV off. I read on this sermon manuscript I was jaded. I was something far more worse. The news didn't surprise me. Is this not the world we live in? Should we not expect this? I'm ashamed to say that while I could have been praying for all involved, I turned my attention to other things, selfish things. I'm ashamed because I wouldn't feel anything until the next day. And I'm ashamed to say that this isn't the first time I've done this. The sad part about my confession is that many, on some conscientious level, share the same sentiment. We think that because we've read the end of this book, that we know Jesus will return, that there will be a new heaven and new earth, that let the world tear itself apart. That things are only going to get worse. I have said this. I have said, you know what? The world is going to continue, and I taught your kids this when I first started. I said the world's going to keep getting worse and worse and worse until Jesus comes home. Or Jesus comes back and takes us home. When I read Matthew 24, I took it as Jesus giving us a laundry list of all the bad stuff that will happen before he comes back. But in the midst of that laundry list, I missed two important parts. One, this all will come to pass. We forget when something comes to pass, it comes and it goes. And we forget verse 14. And this gospel of the kingdom will be preached in all the world as a witness to all the nations. Then the end will come. I've become so focused on apocalyptic signs, how bad the world's getting. And we forget that the only sign that Jesus says that the end is coming and it's coming fast is that the gospel is preached to the end of the world. That in the midst of all the bad stuff, good remains. Love remains. I believe that we have a choice. Isn't that what makes us special? Humans, out of all of creation, we have this thing called free will. God gave us the ability to choose. Yes, Jesus' return is set, and no one knows when he's coming. But our choice is this. When Jesus comes back, will he come to a world filled with hate, destruction, death? Or will he come to a place where his children spread love? I guess in short, will Jesus be proud or will he be ashamed? Church, we have a choice. We have the ability to make this world a better place. 1 Corinthians 13 gives it to us. That ability is love. Earlier I mentioned about the church and it's losing its relevance in that fight, that struggle we do. The debate of should we do new hymns or old hymns? Should we have projectors? Should we have a smoke machine? I think 1 Corinthians 13 gives us what we should do. Though I speak with tongues of men and of angels, but have not love, I have become sounding brass or a clanging cymbal. And though I have the gift of prophecy and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and though I have all faith so that I can remove mountains, but have not love, I am nothing. And though I bestow all my goods to feed the poor, and though I give my body to be burned, but have not love, it profits me nothing. The church has lost its relevance because it has forgotten to love. I implore you this morning, we can change the world. Change can start here, this very moment. We just have to choose love. I will tell you, true love is not easy. It is well. It is well with my soul. That hymn was written by a gentleman who had just gotten news that his entire family had died at sea. And though he wrote a beautiful hymn, and though it helped him heal, it hurt. That video, every fiber of my being hurts. True love will hurt. 1 Corinthians 13 also reminds us that it isn't easy, that it will hurt. It also reminds us of what it is. True love may mean looking at those that hate us and embracing them with love. True love may kill us. They killed Jesus. Jesus died out of his love for us, even when we were lost. I understand how hard it can be to love in the world we live in. I know it's dangerous, but I also know that true love is of God. Like Jesus, it is a light in the darkness. And as John 1:5 said, the darkness will never, ever consume it, overcome it. Let us love. Let us not be like these examples that we see in Jesus' parables of the servants. Servants who let the land just go to waste. Servants that took the talent. Remember? The little talent the one servant had, he just hid on it. He just sat on it. He didn't invest it. That talent is our love. And yeah, we live in a world where there's not much love left. But where I see a world with not much love left, with a whole lot of mountains to climb, I see opportunity. I see the chance for the biggest revival that this world has ever seen. Let us love radically and truly turn this nation. No. Let us truly turn this world back to God. Let us help let the gospel reach the ends of the earth. Over the past couple of weeks, Rebecca and I have spent a lot of time with folks in our community. Some of you are them at VBS. Some have been helping us at Rebecca's school. Others we just simply visited. Something happened on Friday. Rebecca and I went to go see Martha Mode. Friday was also the day I was shooting on to finalize whatever draft of this sermon. For those who don't know her, she's a member of our church that because of health reasons she can't be with us on Sunday mornings. The first thing she said and the last thing she said was how loving and special Union was. How we always sought to take care of her and others, whether it was by taking her meals, offering rides, or in the case of next week, building her a ramp. so she can get in and out of her house easier. In that moment, I was reminded that that I can be proud of this world. I can be proud that we as a church take care of our own, take care of our shut-ins, take care of anyone in the community that asks for it, even if they don't even ask. That when tragedy befalls one of us, we stand together. We help that one person stand instead of fall. I can be proud that though we are a smaller church, and we're one of the smallest churches that help with Friday lunches at First Baptist of Shelby, that we bring the largest group. That every time I hear, wow, you guys bring a large group, I'm proud. That serving is something that we made a part of our identity as this church. I can be proud that even though Charleston could have erupted in hate, there could have been riots, there could have been just bad, that the pictures that we saw were just a glimpse of a moment. The streets were filled with people praying and loving. I can be proud that though this world is filled with hate, that though we're all surrounded by hate, that sometimes we give in to hate, there is something in us that calls us back to love. That there's something in us that allows us to love like God loves, even when we don't choose to. I can be proud, and even though as a Christian, we can still mess up. And in that mess up, God gives us love. I can be proud that even though hate is so prevalent in this world, love like God is still here. Like God, it is not willing to give up. It's just waiting to be used. This is one of God's greatest gifts to us. Will you use it? Will you love? With every fiber of your being, will you love? With every decision you make, will you love? Hate is like a storm. Sometimes it's like a drizzle. Others, it's like a hurricane. But it always follows a pattern. There's that moment when the skies begin to dim. The wind just briefly stops. People who have metal implants can sense bad weather in those moments. And some of us can sense hate before it comes in those moments. Hate marches into a community and it destroys and it kills. It seeks to take something and turn it to nothing. But love was there before the hate. Love is what stood in the storm. Love is what rebuilds. Love is what heals. Love will be there long after hate has come and gone. And love is what remains.